Yeah.
Let's go, baby.
A Red Bull 1-2, more McLaren struggles, and another starting line penalty for the second in as many races. This is Into the Chicane, a Formula One podcast, and this one's for the boys. This is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix post-race edition. Channing Apodaca, your host, as always, with co-host, producer extraordinaire, DJ B. Wood.
Hello.
Everybody.
Welcome back.
Also joining us on this edition, we have F1 podcast or F1 fan extraordinaire Cole Dickey. What's up, buddy?
Thank you.
Good to have you here. And comedian Bruno Mastro de Casa, good friend.
What's up, family?
Both you guys, good friends of the show. Thank you guys for coming in, first of all.
Dude, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys sitting in. Cole, you're going to want to talk into the microphone.
Yeah, get nice and,
This
nice
right
and
here?
close. Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
That close?
There you go. Oh yeah, we had another killer race. This is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Let's jump right into it. How do you guys feel?
This was a fun one. I love how fast this race is. Like
Jeddah is,
Very fast.
as I said on the last quick pit that we had, Jeddah's one of, if not the fastest track on the F1 calendar. And it proved to be such. A lot of great speed, a lot of good drama for this race. This was another fun one. To start things off, pre-race, we had a grid penalty for Charles Leclerc, who he took that penalty because of another electrical power unit failure.
Yeah.
Third power unit.
Leftovers from last week.
It literally, his third power unit in 2 races. So again, Ferrari looking down bad. Bruno,
I don't really want to talk about
our resident Ginzan.
Hey man, dude. They're the lovable losers, bro.
Exactly.
Like,
I think you compared them to the Mets before we were getting started. The Italianos not looking so great. We also had no bike walk
Yeah, I don't.
or no bikes on the track.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, they made this new ruling, and Charles
Chuck
specifically was quoted as saying that you won't see him at the track walks anymore now because of this.
That's a
Interesting.
statement right there.
I mean, I think you can probably chalk up the rule for that to the FIA doesn't want any unwanted debris like a lug nut or anything from the bike maybe falling off. You're just adding more potential mechanical failures or bullshit.
Yeah, I could walk out there with a pocket full of pennies and throw shit out there, but
Yeah, I mean that's the FIA making that. People will probably speculate maybe Charles isn't in as good of a shape going into the season as he maybe should be.
He
That's
gets
probably
laps
not
in
it.
before he gets to the track. Yeah.
Yeah. Pre-race. So Chuck starts P12, right? He takes a 10th place grid penalty
he
for the
got
new
second
power
place
unit.
in qualifying.
Yep.
In qualies, we had Logan Sargent over the line at turn 27 going into Q2, so he misses out on.
that was
Yeah, his time put him up like 4th, I think it was, and then very soon
As it-
after
yeah.
they
as the times went down, like he still would have been in that top 10, maybe just outside, but he would definitely have gone to Q2.
Yeah, the Williams was showing like more, like we've talked about, more good top end speed, more great straight line speed. Not really great race pace, as you know we've seen obviously from both drivers and just the Williams car overall. But he misses out on getting into Q2. Bad start for him, but he still had a pretty good showing, like especially for a rookie, first year, the first American in 15 years in a bad car. Bummer, sucks.
Yeah. This was a track too that was pretty well suited for their car.
Exactly.
So it was a great opportunity for him to get
Definitely.
good qualifying position and all that. But so it was sad to see.
I don't
but-
think it's a hit on Logan Sargent though.
No, things
as-
like
as
that.
a
happen.
driver.
he had a great
No.
race. I think he's still doing well, but that sucks.
I mean, up until,
You just chalk it up to a bummer, I think.
up until his tires kind of went out towards like the end of the race, he was making moves and looked good.
Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah.
he looked good.
He had an overtake somewhere late in the race. I forget where, but yeah, a great showing. There's no loss, I don't think, in like credibility or his what do you call it? Like his stake, his repertoire, or whatever, his reputation. Yeah. He's having a great showing still in the early going of his season. In qualies again, Max drivetrain issues. He was having a drive shaft or was it the gearbox? I think we would disagree with the from Max there. He was definitely having issues. Carlos Sainz in qualies, he struggled to put it into Q2. More Ferrari
Yeah.
woes?
It's just hard. It's just so hard. I love Ferrari and I love Chuck and I love Carlos, and it's becoming so hard to keep that hope alive.
Yeah. They're
You know, like honestly, they finished what 6th and 7th today, and like I actually almost felt good about that, and that says a whole lot of where they're at and where I think it's hard.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Carlos Sainz
they-
ends up putting it in.
He ended up getting it together. He ended up, qualifying. They had 2-3.
Yeah, but then he just fell back. I mean,
Yeah,
who's behind him? Stroll, right? Just immediately took past him off the line.
Hold on, that can't be right. What we're looking at right here, because right now you have it as Sergio Perez 1, Charles Leclerc 2.
Let's go starting grid.
Yeah, there we
There you
go. But that's not.
That's not right either.
That's not right
No, it
either.
has Leclerc at second.
This is 2022.
That's why you're a year behind.
A year behind.
Might help.
There we go.
The results were probably still the same for Ferrari.
Yeah, we're prepared on this show.
Here we go.
There we
Yeah,
go.
it says Lance Stroll right behind him, and honestly,
Crazy that Sergio
Fernando-
Perez was starting pole on both of those though.
So the actual qualifying times are here.
There we go.
Yeah,
so
so-
Carlos he qualifies 5th. He moves up to 4th because of Charles Leclerc's 10-place grid penalty. So Chuck ends up starting P12. Alonso in 2nd, George Russell 3rd. Carlos eventually puts it together. He does 3 more laps than George Russell in the Mercedes. So he had to put in a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra effort to get it up there. Let's go back to our note sheet real quick. What are you going to say, Cole?
No, it's crazy. Like you'd think, I don't know. Like Russell coming through and putting that time up was
Yeah, you got to give it up to
was
Russell.
surprising, and then just after
We've,
that many laps, wasn't able to match it or better.
We've had our George Russell critiques. We've had it out for George Russell, I think, since the start of this show. Gotten into a little bit of tussles even on YouTube in the comments with a couple people. And George Russell, good on him, proving us wrong a little bit because we mentioned him as being a second driver, but he's driving like a first driver, like a number 1 driver for that team right now. I still don't.
He's one of those guys where it's like, even when they're successful, you're just a little angry about it.
Yeah.
Like you just don't want to admit it for some reason.
Yeah,
It's like,
to me, he's like
well earned.
if Woody from Toy Story was the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's kind of what he.
I mean,
it's annoying to watch him do good.
I disagree.
I think it's cool. It's the moments where it sounds like he's complaining or he's whining about his
exactly.
situation, which happens a lot. You saw him under Williams.
It's off-track comments that make you get irked at everything.
he really
George
wears
Russell.
his emotions on his sleeve, and you can.
Which is it's fine,
Yeah.
but then be prepared to take some heat for some of the things you say, like
Yeah.
but on the track, no, he's a phenomenal
He's
driver.
driving like
He's
he is
world-
in the
world-class
hunt for
driver.
the world championship, which is great on him. Fucking good on him. I think the world and F1 as a whole is still backing Lewis and his bid for an 8th world championship, which ain't gonna happen this year.
100.
Also in qualies, we had Checo. He held it out with Max out in Q1, Q2.
Say that again. Max went out
Max
on
went out in
Q1.
Q1.
Well, he didn't make it out but he made it into Q2.
No, he did. He made it into Q2,
but he never went out.
Yeah,
So Max
correct.
out technically in Q2. He starts P15, giving way to Sergio Perez and Alonso to do what they want to do with start, which is where we get started with this race. So Checo starts on pole, Alonso starting in 2nd, and then we had George Russell starting in 3rd. The start of this race, we have Fernando Alonso gets a great jump on Sergio Perez. More struggles for Sergio Perez getting off the line.
His honestly, it's like him coming off the line wasn't that bad, but I think we were talking about earlier was just focused on the defending, right?
Yeah.
Instead of coming straight off. And that first turn is,
Yeah, it's one of those tracks where P2 starts on the inside, which I have a gripe with. I think
Right.
P1 should always start on the inside line. That's just me. The FAA can fucking listen or not. But he gets off the line. He actually got a good jump comparatively, I think, to a lot of his other starts.
Yeah, they showed the data of his reaction time was actually faster than Alonso's.
But he veers off to the left to defend Alonso,
Yeah.
which I think in that instance, just take your good start. Just try for the good start. If you have to go along the outside, great. Just keep your pace and your speed off the line because the next turn is a right-hander, which favors you. But Checo tries to defend right off the jump. He goes straight into straight into Fernando Alonso, and then has to then defend again on the right side for George Russell, which ends up he loses pace, he loses time, and Fernando Alonso takes the inside line. Passes him by turn 1 or turn 2. So just history repeating itself for Checo there.
And I'm just curious as a newer Formula One fan, right? Because I was listening to you guys talk about the start, and it made me wonder, like, is this something that Checo does frequently if he gets pole? Like, he really tries to be defensive? Or
you see it a lot. Checo is, in nature, I think, a defensive driver. His nickname is the Mexican Minister of Defense. But that's kind of like in the recent years because of his position at Red Bull, where he's a noted second driver.
Yeah.
He's in the second seat of that team. So he has to do a lot of defending. And I think he drives like that from the start of the race to just defend.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a position where it's
not full confidence in life.
Yeah, he's not.
I can
maybe
go boom.
I shouldn't say that this definitively, but it seems like he's not exactly comfortable from start to finish leading. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
He just hasn't done it that much.
I guess, yeah. Like, how many more years with an actual, like, capable team does it take for him to be that? Because, you know.
Well, you just have to get used to, like we said, just go. Just get a good start and figure it out from there. I mean, it is a split second. And again, these are 4 fucking dudes living in apartments talking about millionaires here. And high-end athletes.
I'm actually a
so
millionaire.
It's probably a lot easier said than done, but just go. Just get your good jump.
Here's the thing. Today, as soon as he lap 3 passes Fernando back, he just charged ahead, held it, did an awesome job. Like, even later on when Max was on his tail, and
that could that could even be like his strategy. Like, I'll get whatever jump I want.
Right.
Knowing in confidence that because of the car that he's driving, he's going to end up passing eventually. I felt that way.
I think also, like, for him, there's still, like, this massive amount of pressure on him for him to perform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with Verstappen starting down at 15th, like, maybe it wasn't the best thing to actually jump off the line and fight right away because they do have a fast car. They can get through, and he proved that immediately.
I just 100%. And I had full confidence that Checo.
I think we all said it before.
Yeah, he would pass eventually.
A lot. Well, we said $100, like whatever. We say actual amount of dollars, but we're like, what do you want to bet right off the line? Alonso
will pass him.
Pass him.
But I had full confidence that even if he gets past him, Checo eventually, within however many laps it takes, is going to get around him again just because of the pace of the Red Bull car. I just think that Max in that seat in pole position, he's going to stay in first.
Oh, yeah, for
He's
sure.
going to jump off the line, and he's going to hold it, and that's just going to be the difference.
So one thing I'm curious about, because I know you're a big Red Bull fan, right?
Yeah, I like Red Bull.
Yeah, so, okay.
I'm pretty across the board, but
Red Bull, like, you would say that's, like, your team.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one.
Red Bull and McLaren.
Okay, perfect.
Both ends of the spectrum.
Do you think that you might be watching a Red Bull season coming up like Mercedes had with Lewis? And I forget the driver he competed against.
Bottas.
It wasn't Bottas, the dude that won the title over Lewis.
You're talking about Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, do you think
Nico
Red Bull
Rosberg
could be having a Rosberg-Lewis Hamilton season? Because I don't think Checo wants to play second fiddle anymore. Like, I think he really wants to prove himself to be a champ.
I think that Checo is pushing to be the Nico Rosberg to Max Verstappen's Lewis Hamilton. I don't know if it's that close.
Gotcha.
If anything, Checo's fighting to maintain his seat.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't think he's necessarily trying to outperform Max. He's just trying
he also recognizes
keep up with him as best he can.
I think there's a split.
Yeah.
I think it's
somewhere in the middle there.
Split in the middle of this.
Yeah.
What do I got to do to keep this going? / also, like, fuck, man, I wonder
this
what
is my
would happen
shot.
if I gave it all.
This is Checo literally in a car for the ages. This Red Bull car comparatively against every other car on the grid is worlds away from everybody else. And Checo's going, well, this might be my only opportunity in a great car to compete for a world championship. I do have this giant hurdle in Max Verstappen that I have to overcome. But if Max continues to have any sort of an issue, Checo's got to be there to pick up the pieces.
Right, exactly.
And every point on the line, which we'll get to at the end with the fastest lap, has to go to Checo if he wants to compete.
Yeah.
And this race, I think, is a show that Max isn't going to have it as easy against all. He might have it easy against the rest of the grid, but he's not going to have it as easy as the rest of the grid in his own team.
Sure.
Against Checo Perez. Checo, I think, is going to do everything he can to convince the team to give him the opportunity to solidify a win like he did today.
That's such a hard one too, because like as it's going, as far as constructor, like they're just guaranteed.
We're 2 races in, and they're after Bahrain, we on this show, every pundit in F1 was saying this is could be a 23-0 sweep, and they're already 2-0.
Wasn't he like I forget? I think it was George Russell or someone from another team even said no one's beating this Red Bull car this year.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. It was George Russell said, if I had to bet, I would say that put money on Red Bull going 23-0.
So here's the thing, that's not guaranteed though. There was races we saw last year where both of their cars DNF'd. Anything can happen at any time. I think on any given Sunday there should be at least 2 or 3 teams up there waiting for something to happen and waiting for their opportunity to jump and capitalize on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not going to be 23-0.
No,
it's not.
It's very unlikely.
It's fucking possible.
But also,
it's fucking possible, but prove me wrong, because that would be insane.
Exactly.
But no,
that's like one of the exciting factors about this season is, you look at it like, Red Bull's, like Bruno said, entering this dominance era like we haven't seen. But there is an exciting record to be broken. Like if Red Bull does go 23-0, that's a spectacle. You know what I mean? Exactly. We'll probably be hearing a whole lot of that from a bunch of different team principals. Also, another bad start for my second favorite team, McLaren. Oscar Piastri rubs elbows on the first lap. Part of his wing gets taken off. Lando already missing Q2 because of some mechanical issues, so they're already starting in the back.
Not mechanical issues. It was his own issues of running into the wall.
He ran into the wall.
Oh, that's right. He rubbed the wall.
I guess mechanically because his car couldn't.
He fucking destroyed his front left
suspension. They had 2.5 minutes left in qualifying to try and fix that issue, and they had a shot of the McLaren mechanics trying to get that shit done, and I was like, you guys aren't getting that thing on track. There's no fucking
I feel
way.
like they got pretty damn close. But
they probably got close. They got close, I'm sure. But just more McLaren woes. And then to start this race, Oscar Piastri rubs with one of the Alpine drivers. I forget who is I think Esteban Ocon. He has to pit early, and then immediately after that, Lando's pitting, and they both got new tires and new front nose wings.
Yeah, they both got damage like on the first lap.
So that sets them back. So now they're back on the heels. Just more shit storm raining down on McLaren. It's just not looking good for them.
It's not looking good.
And the thing is, like, I think Brew, you were asking at the start of the race, like, is McLaren really that bad? And it's like, man, I want to say no, because they qualified decently. Their car's not good, but they still qualified middle of the pack. But then they have this shit storm.
Well, we don't know. We haven't actually got to see them actually race. Well, I mean, honestly, Piastri was looking pretty damn good out there towards the end when they actually they're way behind everything and they're racing, and there was
once they were able to settle in. But it's also like settle in FP2, dial it in FP3. Put it together in qualies and get ready for the race. It seems like they're
not lap 46.
Yeah,
of the
they're
race.
2 steps behind, and then you go, "Oh shit! Did Oscar Piastri just pass fucking Nick DeVries? Good on it." You know what I mean? Way to go! But it looks good, but they're also 2 steps behind. They're 2 days behind.
Mm-hmm.
So just more McLaren woes. Sad.
So this is something I'm curious that if you guys have thought about, or like what your opinions are on it, right? Because I know I've been a Daniel Ricciardo fan, and you've constantly been like, no, McLaren needs to get rid of this guy. It's the right move, right? But now after seeing this, is there maybe some sort of wondering in McLaren of like, was it really Ricciardo, or did we just give a good driver a shit vehicle? Like,
no,
our engineers
he is definitely at fault for his portion of the problems, because if you look comparatively to him and his teammate, he was consistently 5 to 10 places behind Lando.
Mm-hmm. So now forward this season, how do you think they're even thinking about this, right? Because they want to get a good young driver in Piastri.
I think they just want to figure out
why
their car is so shitty.
They're clenching their fucking butt cheeks is what they're doing, because they paid a lot of money to get Oscar Piastri in that seat, and they're getting bested by the team who they stole him from and paid upwards of $50 million or so to buy out Daniel Ricciardo's contract and put him in that seat. Which will move us to Fernando Alonso's penalty for improper grid position, and then he didn't execute the penalty properly.
Yeah, Fernando was just a couple inches to the left of the line. So same kind of thing as what happened with Ocon last week.
Yeah,
not necessarily forward, but just to the left a little bit.
It's crazy that we've seen this penalty for 2 weeks in a row, because even Bruno, you were commenting on it in the race. You're like, I've never seen this penalty happen, and it's the second time, like I said at the top of the show, in as many races that a driver has gotten this penalty. And we've seen it similarly before, where like Checo year before at Baku lined up crooked, but still within the regulation. What Fernando did was he lined up too far to the left, and he had wheels outside the starting grid line, which caused, he got a 5-second penalty for that. Stewards gave him. And then again, he goes in to serve his time penalty, this time under safety car, which caused a little bit of confusion. I don't know about for the FIA, but at least amongst us, as to whether he or not he
was able to
do that under VSC, which cool, good.
That could have been a huge advantage.
Yeah,
could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been, which I guess I think it was the rear jack man, right?
It was so hard.
It's hard to say
it's
who
so
was.
hard to see.
By the optic of it, it looks like it was the rear jack man put his jack too close to the car, touches the car, so that nullifies their 5-second penalty. So they lose that 5 seconds and then are awarded another 10-second penalty on top to the 5 seconds that they were already awarded.
It was very, very weird, because it's such an unseen thing, and then to have that penalty for moving in too fast on the car and working on it, like it was like, wait, again?
Yeah,
this is happening again.
Another one?
It was
Weird.
It was a deja vu of literally everything that Esteban Ocon had in the previous race. It would have been fucking hilarious if Alonso sped out and got.
Well, I'm glad he didn't.
Repeat. I know.
I'm glad he.
You have to think that he was,
already got the podium.
Yeah, living that little bit of a Groundhog's Day in his own head, being like, "Don't follow suit. Don't follow suit."
After he just left.
Yeah, so he gets another penalty, which we don't find out till after the race, which we'll get to. That he's awarded 10 seconds on top of that. Pushing back to the race, Checo stays close to Fernando Alonso on the opening laps. Like we were talking about, he gets a bad start. Fernando Alonso passes him. But Checo, like we said, no unconfidence in the Red Bull car. He passed him by lap 3.
Lap 3 is before the DRS, right?
No, lap 3 it was right when he got DRS. It was just as they were crossing the line into lap 4, I think. It was
calculated.
And he gets DRS. He passes him just across the start-finish line, retains P1, and kind of never let go. Really, right?
No, I mean, yeah.
Maybe for a split second, whenever he pitted to get hards.
Yeah, they went to hards.
Yeah, which, I mean, Checo just on top of shit. He stayed in P1, which good for him. I think there was a record set. This was the longest time a Mexican has held P1 since, I forget the dude's name. I should know, but I forget the last Mexican F1 driver. But he ties that record or sets the record. And good on Checo. We all love Checo. Stroll fighting for position, but he DNF'd after lap 17, causing a full safety car. At first it was a VSC, and then it turned into a full safety car.
Yeah, there's a little bit of controversy online about this and whether or not it was actually needed to go full safety car.
Because he was right there in the runoff.
Yeah, and all they had to do is pretty much just push the car back into that little outlet. But
that could have changed a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, it was a call.
How many laps did they end up going under safety car?
2 or 3 maybe.
Yeah, probably.
It was pretty quick.
It was a fast one. It seemed like it came and went pretty quick. I wasn't counting
it
the laps.
It left opportunity for everybody. I think
nothing.
Charles had just taken his soft,
he did.
So he kind of got screwed a little bit on that. But everybody else, everyone that was fighting in the midfield all went for their new set of tires, and it kind of worked out for a lot of people.
Interesting. Yeah. So Aston Martin roller coaster continues. You know, they have a great start to the season, and now Lance Stroll was actually looking great in qualies. He almost put it on pole. He put in 2 purple sectors.
That was
he qualifies high up in the rankings, and then a little DNF. Do we know what it was? It was the right front brake that caught on fire.
I
think it was the right front.
They said on TV, and that's why they were extinguishing it. They said it was right front brake, but I don't know if it was ever confirmed.
It was weird because the team just told Lance to stop.
Yeah.
They said, pull over, stop, shut the car off. So to me, that seems like it's probably more of like they had a motor issue that they
didn't want to
make worse, and the brake thing might have just been residual. Just the brakes already being hot, and because he stopped and didn't give
just because he wasn't getting air into it. Yeah, he was pointing to the front right brake, and that's where the steward or the track, I forget what you call them.
Marshals.
The track marshals were putting the fire extinguishers at. But bummer on Lance. He was looking to probably move up even more. He had made a pass on
Carlos right in the beginning.
He was probably,
and then he
was probably targeting
still.
George. I would think.
I think throughout
over the course of the race, he probably would have caught him.
But by the time he when he went out, he's kind of stagnant at that point. Yeah. But stagnant in
bummer.
4th?
I think we all had him on our fantasy team.
And at this point, Max had worked his way all the way up to 4th. So he was able to go in, get his fresh set of tires, and just come out in a prime position.
Max Max was ahead of Stroll at that point.
Well, it might have been he might have been in 5th or something.
After safety car, Max, I think, got that far.
He was in 4th. Yeah. He came out, he was in 4th.
But I mean, I think by lap 20, Max was up to 4th, which is just insane. That's 11 places.
Max 11 places. Actually fucking insane. Watching him is I'm a golfer. It's reminiscent of Tiger Woods. You can give the guy any type of handicap in the world, and he will still come back and fight. And if he doesn't get first, he's making you really nervous that you're not going to get first.
Yeah.
I mean, Checo's biggest competition was Max today, and he knew it. Always. And that's why I think this season's going to be very interesting between Red Bull. Checo wants it. He knows he has a great car, but he knows Max is also hungry. I don't know. This team's just electric.
I mean, that's the thing with Max is he's always going to be hungry. He's never going to secede a position. He was pushing it to Checo up until the very end, which we have it in our notes. We'll get to it a little bit later. But I mean, Max, 11 places in 20 laps. I thought he was going to get up at least 4 or 5 in the first lap, which it didn't work out that way. Probably just because of the intricacies of that track. Because it's so tight and everybody is moving at such a high rate of speed, he ended up staying back a little bit longer, but he ends up pulling it out.
Actually, how many races have we really seen Max start back in that area?
Not many.
And I feel like that's just not a comfort zone for him. So I feel like he kind of has to get the race going, and then he's like, okay, I can get through all this shit. Instead of just going straight for it and blasting through.
Maybe his race IQ is still he can just make passes over and over. We saw it at Spa last year. He started in the back of the pack. I don't remember exactly what position, but he won that race from the back of the pack.
Yeah.
Oh no, 100%. I mean, I'm not saying he can't move up. I'm just saying
he's done this before multiple times, right? I remember when I first started watching F1, you were you got to watch this Max Verstappen race where he was in the back, and I think it's a rain race. He's in
Sochi
16 or some shit, and comes back to win.
No, he came back to finish P2. That was Sochi, and that was the one that would have been Lando's first win. Yeah, but Lando didn't want to pit for wets, and Lewis ends up taking it.
Yeah, part of the reason for his early kind of slow climb, I think, was because of just this traffic. There's a lot of traffic. That midfield's very tight with each other. This track doesn't leave a lot of space to pass. It's kind of narrow street circuit. So
the fact that he was able to move all the way up to the front of the pack in 20 laps or whatever is still amazing.
Absolutely. Unbelievable. Still giving himself more than half the race.
So by the time he worked his way up into second, where he was behind Checo. There's this weird moment where the engineers were telling him to go 0.4 slower.
Yeah,
They were telling Checo that?
Yeah.
I remember.
And then he goes, well, how fast is Max going? And they tell him, oh, well, he's doing a 32.6 or whatever. He's like, so you want me to go slower than that? Like,
Yeah.
it was this weird moment.
That was
where,
Checo playing Mr. Magoo and sniffing out a little bit of a fucking issue.
I mean,
fuck the Mexican Minister of Defense, dude. He's Detective Checo at that point.
It's hard though, because I mean, is it like a conspiracy thing, or is it actually just like, hey, like you do have over a 5-second gap, and with the rest of the laps, if you go down to here, you still have.
Yeah,
at
that point, I think Max was in P2 at that point.
Yeah, that's when he was.
So I was gonna say, like, is that them telling Checo to slow down the rest of the pack to let Max pass? But at P2, it already seems a little iffy. And once Checo said that, though, they were kind of like, "No, yeah, you're free to go full out." He kind of called him out, "Go full throttle."
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which good on Checo, because that's the type of shit that he needs to show.
Yeah.
To be like, if he were to just follow suit and go, okay, slow down 0.4, you got it.
No, it was great.
Yeah.
He knew what they were trying to do, bro.
Yeah. And the team's not going to not try that.
No.
They're going to do it, and they're going to poke Checo in the ribs and go, hey, what do you think? And if he doesn't follow suit, then go, okay, we got a driver on our hands here. And good. That's exactly what we want as fans. And honestly, for Red Bull, that's the best outcome they have, just so long as those two drivers don't rub. You know? You want two drivers pushing for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best that we can hope for to get that Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg circa 2016.
I want to watch that.
Yeah.
Like, as a fan of the sport, like, I want to see, like, if the two best drivers in the grid are in the best car and all the other drivers are sort of in between, I want to see those two drivers go for it then.
Do you think Checo is the second best driver?
Probably not, but
that's the thing. I want to see it because I do think Checo can do it and, like, has proven that he wants to, but the team has, hey, you got to fall back. Yeah. Max has this in the bag. And, like, last season, Max ran away with it. But I think at the beginning of this season, now that we're having, like, I think Checo in his
It would be
head,
fun to see. Like,
we at least want to see somebody give
see
Max a challenge. And right now, because of the way this shit shook out, we're only 1 point away.
Nah.
Here's a question. Do you think Lewis Hamilton is still a threat to Max, or do you think Max has just gone
at this point? Not right
it's
now.
over
No.
for me?
I mean,
it doesn't negate the fact that Lewis is still probably the greatest of all time, or
Never
negate
doubting
his
that.
skill. It's literally the machine that he's working with.
Yep.
yeah, and the turnaround time, and I mean to get him into something that's suitable to actually compete and be consistent. And that's just,
I think
that's a
we
big
can
ask.
probably start questioning Lewis's motivation, because this is the second time in as many outings that George has bested him.
So this was next thing I kind of wanted to get to is at one point when we had George in front of Lewis. I forget where they were exactly. Maybe it was like 5 and 6, something like that. 6 and 7. Lewis behind him in mediums. Team is asking George, let Lewis by. George says no. Stays out, fights him off, ends up pulling away from Lewis a little bit.
So there was some confusion, I believe, because they thought that Alonso hadn't served his 5 second, because this is before the 10-second thing.
Yeah.
So I think that was the reason why. I can't remember exactly, but there was something about it where
I remember what you're
George
saying.
was like, I could have been pushing this entire fucking time, but
Yeah, because he asked his crew, he goes, doesn't he have to serve a 5-second penalty?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly. I mean,
I mean, there was confusion the entirety of that penalty because we didn't get it until post podium, which
That just
Well, here's the thing though, Lewis ended up having to sit behind him and try to fight to get in front of him a little bit. Ends up wearing out a little bit of those medium tires, doesn't really actually get to fully take advantage of that, and kind of fucks up Mercedes' whole strategy there for the two cars, right? So
yeah. Which, hey, dude, good on George. He's standing strong to just like let me run my best race without team orders. He's not playing that Valtteri Bottas role that we've seen Mercedes do previously, because Val would probably have just moved out of the way.
So if you're Toto, what do you think about that?
If you're Toto, you're getting new gray hairs on that beautiful black mane that you have, because because life's just not easy for you anymore. Toto's life as a team principal was easy because he had somebody who was just willing to, I don't want to make Val look bad, but bend over and just take team orders and let Lewis by. Lewis now is in a new position where he hasn't had to fight. And like I said earlier, we've gotten into arguments about George's position on that team. I think the team still does favor Lewis Hamilton. Mm-hmm. George is just making it really hard for them to do that. Mm-hmm. The team itself still sees Lewis as one. George is just the new up-and-comer who's making that decision for them to be really fucking hard. And the decision for Lewis on whether or not he wants to stay at Mercedes to be really fucking hard.
It's almost reminiscent of, like, as a football fan, like Tom Brady, sort of. It's like, he's 45, he's still playing. He's Tom fucking Brady. But at the end of the day, it's like, we got to hand over the torch at some point, right? Like, the guy can't be racing the way he raced in his prime forever. We got a young gun that's showing up. It's got to be a weird dynamic.
But also, what did Brady do as soon as he left New England? He goes to Tampa Bay and he goes and wins the Super Bowl. Yeah. So maybe Lewis can take a fucking chip off that block.
Yep.
Needs a change of scenery.
Dude.
Mm-hmm. Where's he going?
Now
that's a rumor mill that we've been talking about. Red Bull? That would be disgusting.
That would be crazy.
Checo's contract, we've been talking about this with Lando Norris. Checo's contract is up after next year. If Lewis goes to Red Bull, that is a literal slap in the face to not Mercedes, not Formula One, but to the entire sporting world as a whole.
It would never happen.
It would shake it would shake the foundation of everything that sport is known as. That'd be like, when back in the day when you would play video games on like a PlayStation, you can try and make a trade.
Yeah, you can make your own all-star trade.
The game would go, the team declines this trade. It seems a little unfair, and they'd give you the option, to like follow the rule or whatever, or override, and you go, override.
Yeah, we're doing this trade.
Let's go.
Yeah, cost cap wise, I don't know. Lewis can take a discount. Lewis can race at Checo's salary. He's been making $44 million a year for X amount of years. He's good on money.
What I would love to see is a team like Haas or like Alpine just spend a stupid amount of money on Lewis and not care about their second driver and put Lewis in one of their cars.
I think the biggest...
That would be fun. I would like to see that.
That would be super fun.
Those to see, but it'd be a bad...
who knows what Alpine's putting together for next year, but a team, I think that where the real controversy would come in is would Lawrence Stroll be willing to sack Lance because they already got Fernando locked up. I would do a super team.
No.
Long shot, but Lawrence, we've talked about it on this show. Lawrence has hinted at the fact that he's not afraid to sack Lance for the betterment of the team.
He said that, but when it comes down to it,
when it comes time to put
more
pen to
likely
paper,
that it turns into Stroll racing.
But why wouldn't they sack
Then they get rid of.
Like, unless
look at what Fernando's doing. Fernando's also one of the greatest of all time.
I know.
If we could be talking about Fernando Alonso, 4 or 5-time world champion, if things in the past had just gone a different way. You're talking about minimal points. Yeah. But on paper, it just doesn't look as good as Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, versus Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champion, even though those 2-time world championships were decided a couple times, 2 or 3, over less than a handful of points. Fernando is no joke, one of the greatest of all time, and his drive to do it doesn't seem like it's gone anywhere.
Nowhere.
That's the most impressive part.
Fernando has won the fucking 24-hour at Le Mans. Yeah. He's 2-time world champion in F1. He tried to do Indy. Like, the dude is hungry and he wants to prove he's
wants
a
race
racer.
And he wants a party. Like,
I'm just wondering
when you talk about
owner of a team.
When you talk about compete, Fernando is
he's got that dog in him.
He's fucking who let the dogs out, Baha man.
But this is what I'm just wondering, right? Like, if I'm just owning a team in that mindset, do I want 2 40-year-olds? Like, that's what I'm thinking. It's just like
geriatric F1.
That's the thing, dude. Like, they're 2 of the goats. You'll have a fucking phenomenal team, but is that really what you want to build your team upon? It's like 2 guys.
It's not the smartest idea.
No, you need like one
longevity,
one OG and 1 young buck.
That's what
but
I'm
saying. For a season. 1 season, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso.
Now you know
all in.
No.
In a car that has already proven itself to be second best this year, and they're building a new wind tunnel, so they're going to get a bunch more testing.
I disagree. I'm agreeing with Brandon here. I don't think that could work. I do.
Or are they going to lose points because they're fighting each other too much?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And
that's a factor that doesn't get talked about enough.
Because it's weird. Like, it's 20 alpha males. Like 20 guys who want to win.
Like 17 alpha males, Alex Albon.
Regardless. Right? Like, I think it's got to be so hard to be that type of dude with that mentality of, like, I want to win.
Yeah.
And then get on a team and be like, all right, I'll be second fiddle. Like,
Yeah.
I'll embrace it, you know? Like, Max even said about Checo, like, 2 seasons ago when he won, like, Checo, he's the best teammate ever, right? Mm-hmm. But how long can someone like Checo do that, though?
You absolutely need that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's speculation, and that's one of my favorite things to talk about. I could talk about what's going to happen later on forever. Either way,
I think he ends with Mercedes.
Lewis?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Man, but Lewis has said that he wants to win that. That's where the controversy comes in.
Yeah, a lot of people can say, I want this
Toto
and that. But
Toto said on record that they're years away from putting together another package.
He also
I think they're also too prideful to mimic the Red Bull model. They're going to try and find Aero in their own way.
He also did say that, if they can't produce a car for him in the next year or two, then he has like no gripes, anything. If Hamilton wants to go somewhere, you can go.
Yep, but it's all dependent on what Lewis wants to do. But that's for the future. We have more to talk about in this race.
And we also, lap 27, saw Alex Albon go out very slowly with some apparently brake issues. So
sad.
Hate to see it.
You hate to see it.
He was one of my predictions.
Yeah, you had him in the
10.
points, right?
He was sitting around 12th, 13th. He maybe could have gotten a little better, but
yeah, that's the thing with that Williams, like we talked about in the quick pit, is that's one of the cars that's built for straight line speed, which track like Jeddah favors, but that thing doesn't handle well in the corners. So Alex had a potential to, get himself in the points, get up there, and then he goes out with brake issues. Sucks. Alex is one of my favorite drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that. Like, I don't think it was.
It's not detrimental. It's not going to change their season at all.
But yeah, I mean, bummer. But like, the good thing to look at is like there is a lot to come from that car, and with him and Logan together, like they're driving well.
Yeah,
the car does perform well when it does, but we also have to expect a car like Williams to have that.
Williams is like. It's like Ferrari on whatever the opposite of steroids is. You know what I mean? Because like they do consistently have high expectations. I think year in and year out, everybody's like, Williams is going to do better this year. I've been saying it for the last 2 years.
And honestly, they have been doing
better.
Yeah.
But then they have like another like little blip and you're like, who cares? It's Williams. Like
of course.
When bad shit goes bad, when good shit goes good for Williams, you're like, oh, dude, start the fireworks. When bad shit goes bad, you
Like, all right.
It
was
bound
worth
to
the
happen,
money.
yeah.
It's fine.
Of course.
It's like you
It's
buy
Williams.
a scratcher at the liquor store,
Yeah.
and you're like, last $5, whatever.
When something goes right for
I won
Williams,
$3. Yes.
when Williams does something good, you're like, I fucking told you so. And then when they go bad, it's like, no shit, dumbass. Of course. And then after that, we had lap 46, Oscar Piastri getting a little bit scrappy with teammate Lando Norris. Fun shit.
Yeah, they passed each other back and forth. Interestingly, Piastri was on the hards and Lando was on the mediums.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There was team orders as well. To Lando saying, "Don't make it too hard for Piastri."
Yeah.
So
wow, and only Bottas was behind them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about him. He was having a sorry ass race.
I think.
Yeah, it was because they finished. I think Lando eventually passes Oscar.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oscar.
You're right. Bottas
Oscar passed.
Oscar finished ahead of Lando. He finished 15th.
He went past
No
and then
shit.
past Logan.
Yeah,
Logan
Hey,
never
good for him.
got past.
It was
At one
within
point,
those
Logan
last
was-
few laps that Oscar just pulled away.
Oh, nice.
So does that? If you're Lando, how are you feeling about that?
Jeez,
I mean,
like shit. I would assume. I was trying to make a nice comparable, but I couldn't think of anything in the moment. I think Lando's just overall got to be kicking. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Sad Lando. But
Stupid ass.
I made this.
It's got to just be. It's more of the same a little bit, but it's getting drawn out.
I mean, I think we kind of talked about this earlier during the race, where it's like a psychological thing almost at this point. Like, it's just so hard to be a good driver, drive hard, and deal with all this shit. And now it's like, oh, you're racing against Oscar Piastri, and you're on a softer
star
compound,
rookie, yeah.
And it's just like,
this was Oscar Piastri's race to show that he is everything he's cracked up to be, and the moves he made kind of did it. Because if you're going up against Lando Norris, that your teammate is, despite the fact that they're both in the bottom, Lando Norris is a world beater of a talent. Mika Hakkinen said it himself. Two-time world champion Mika Hakkinen said it himself this week. Lando Norris is one of the greatest prodigies that we've seen, and they're just in the pits right now.
100%. But
that's a great showing for Oscar to do what he did against Lando. But then you have to, again, question Lando's motives.
Yeah.
Question his drives. Is he fucking fallen off?
Lando's never been good.
Well, no, Lando's a...
We get into this debate all the time, and I
You're
just
fu-
want to
you-
hear from you.
you're
Why
full of
is he
shit.
so good? Like, why do you guys think he's so good? He's never struck me as someone that, like, has the intangible talent like a Max does to, like, really be a champ.
Because he's never been in a car that has been able to show. He's been in a car his entire F1 career outside of F2 that has always been up and down. That McLaren team, for whatever reason, is on the rocks. And I do blame it. We were talking yesterday. I put a lot of that, the fact that they're so up and down, on the fact that McLaren is spread so thin.
What do you
Red
mean
Bull
by that?
focuses on Red Bull F1 racing. McLaren has Red Bull F1, Red Bull IndyCar, Red Bull Formula
McLaren,
E.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or sorry, McLaren
They have so many different
F1.
ventures.
They have McLaren IndyCar. Was it Aero McLaren? They have Formula E. They have McLaren. What's the off-road? Fucking
what Travis
Extreme,
Pastrana used to do or
Extreme
whatever?
E. They have so many different teams, and their CEO,
I heard they're making
who's
birds
like
next year.
50% of half of their team principal advisory board, whatever you want to call it, is at every single one of those races. Like their investment is spread thin, and Lando Norris is bearing the brunt of that. Lando Norris is a world-class talent. Everybody in F1, when you watch, once he gets good shit, he has good weekends. Take it back to Sochi 2019 or 2020, whenever it was. That would have been his first win. He should have beat Ricciardo at Monza when Ricciardo won McLaren's last race. He should have beat him, but he stayed back so that Ricciardo could get that because Ricciardo was in the twilight of his career. Lando had better pace. Lando is a world-class talent. He's just not getting it. Same thing with Alex Albon. Alex Albon is up there with those guys, but just hasn't been in a machine that can do it.
But the question going back to
Just
Lando,
hasn't shaked out.
is, yes, we know he has the talent. Does he still
Does he have the drive?
have that drive?
I could
It's
see
It's
that.
hard.
starting-
It's mentally. It's
I think it needs to like work up, right? Like he needs some like good qualifying finishes. He needs a couple good race top 10 finishes under his belt
How
for
do you
him
do
to
it with-
really feel like
We also know that Lando, like, he is very into new age, social media shit. He's a streamer. A lot of his time goes into all that shit. And that might be taking up too much of his time when things are going bad. He said it himself. He'll stay up for days on end just streaming video games.
Does he still do it as much as he did?
I don't know.
2 years. I don't think he does as much.
yeah,
as
I
2
think that's
years
more of
ago.
an
I
off
think-
season thing. I think he takes
Potentially,
his
but
F1
just
still
to
very
like,
seriously.
harken back to Cole's question, does he have the initiative to do it as much? It doesn't look like it. Dude's got bags under his eyes. I love Lando. Lando's one of my favorite fucking drivers, but it is time to question whether or not he really has that same drive. I think everything that we've talked about for the last few weeks on this show, all the rumors swirling, once he gets into a new car, if McLaren doesn't turn it around in the next year or two, things will look different for Lando Norris. I do still fully believe that one day he will win at least one world championship. And if he doesn't, that's a shame. He'll go down as one of those guys who, in sports, in F1, who was a great that never won. He really will. He'll be the,
I was thinking about this when we we're talking about Alonso and we're talking about he's what, 2?
Yeah, Alonso's 2.
2, right? We were talking about like, you know, the time and like if choices would have been better, and he could have been much more than a 2-time world champion. And I was just thinking about that for a lot of drivers like Lando, also Charles Leclerc as well. Like, is it going to be a thing where, you know, way down the line, like at this point, I'm just hoping for one championship for
Leclerc, yeah.
Like just
at this point, I'm waiting for one race win for Lando.
Seriously. He's been close a couple times, but
he's been close.
I guess timing is.
I know you don't see it
important.
a whole lot for, you know, when you're watching a little bit more on the outside, but the more you watch, you'll see Lando he's world class. From that young driver pool of the Maxes, the Leclercs, the George Russells, Lando's up there with them. He's probably, if he was in the Ferrari, we'd be talking about Lando Norris instead of Charles Leclerc. It's that. You just don't see it. Now pushing into, Max had a little bit more drive shaft issues going out of qualifying and into the race.
Yeah, it was more towards the end when he was just kind of sit behind Checo. That could have been a reason why he wasn't given too much pressure to Sergio.
Yeah.
At the end, kind of just let Checo just cruise it in.
But like we said, Checo needs to be able to he needs to pick up those scraps for everything that he can get.
Yeah, I mean that's Checo's job. Like he's supposed to be there to win when Max, for whatever reason, can't. So,
had he not had those drive shaft issues, what do you think the probability that he would have actually won that race would have been? Because he was up into second by.
He got up.
It would have been close.
Yeah, it would have been close.
They were pushing. Soon as I think you were about to say the same thing. As soon as Max got there, Checo turned it on too, and he upped his pace.
He did, and you know, Max was taking off like, you know, maybe 0.2 a lap for a bit until that kind of happened, and you could hear the frustration in his voice. He, you know, and I think we were watching it like. Probably mainly because of like fantasy and weather. We're like, dude, just chill. You got like 12 seconds on Alonso, 13 seconds. Like,
you're fine.
Don't pull your fucking car. But you know, he wanted it, and you could also hear Checo's voice as well, being like, well,
what's going on?
Why
it's also interesting though because Max had this issue in qualifying with the drive shaft. And then he had it, they supposedly fixed it, and then he had it in the race. There's no swapping out cars. Max's car is Max's car, Checo's car is Checo's car. If this is going to be an ongoing issue for whatever reason in Max's car, is that going to give Checo the edge until they really dial that shit in?
I'm going to pull up a Mazepin and be like, you know.
Yeah. Let's swap cars. You know, who knows how long Max could be facing this issue, and if that's the case, then Checo could make out for a few races as being top dog until Max's car gets dialed in.
I'm here for it.
I feel like if Max's car was dialed in, I feel like this would have come down to team orders at a certain point.
Yeah, which would have been unfortunate. I think Checo forced them into not placing team orders once he upped his pace.
Yeah,
especially after the message that you sent or that you were talking about. Like they asked him to slow down his pace, and he was like, "But where's Max at?" And they told him it was faster. He was like, "What the fuck? No."
Yeah.
I'm keeping it.
Yeah, and at the end, Sergio had been putting up consistently like faster laps. He was holding on to that fast lap, that extra point for a while.
Even when Max did put in fastest lap, Checo responded, and he put in another fastest lap. So it showed that both of them had a little bit more pace. So it's actually like, you know, was Max sandbagging a little bit with that drive shaft error?
I don't think so. No. I think
Hopefully
that was
not.
legit.
I like that, Chan, though. I like that.
It's a nice little conspiracy, right?
You think he was sandbagging a little bit?
No, because you could also hear...
But hear it screaming on the radio.
A little bit, but those cars also squeal regardless.
Nah.
It's a nice little fun thing to run with. In the end, Max did take fastest lap, which was a dogfight between him and Checo and caused a little bit of friction between the two of them because Checo had to ask Max in the cool-down room, like, did you push that little extra bit when and it was like, when I already had fastest lap?
Yeah, he didn't find out until, I think, honestly,
in the cool-down
interview. No, I think the interviews before.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, whoever was interviewing him
the
was
reporter asked him,
And you could see his eyes just go like, he was like, oh, happy, like, yeah, like I'm on top of the world. And then that comment came in of Max getting fastest lap, and his eyes went.
Would have put Checo 1 point ahead for the world championship, which it doesn't mean any kind of a permanence, but it is like
it's still nice to go into next week.
It's nice to go into Australia being like, I'm the world championship leader, and then that gives you a little bit of confidence. It's optics amongst F1 world, because then Red Bull has to answer to the fact that they swapped drivers potentially, if something came about it.
Yeah. It's too early in the season for them to be playing favorites, I think.
It is. It's too early in the season
for the team.
If there's for the drivers,
if there's circumstantial reasons for them to swap cars, that makes sense to me.
For sure,
for them just to have Checo roll over just for no reason, just to let Max win, that it doesn't make sense right now.
There was a moment in the cooldown room where Checo asked Max, like, "Oh, did you put in fastest lap?" And there was like a little bit of some sandpaper between the two of them.
Interesting moment.
Discussing like, and it was almost like Checo was like asking him, like, really, you pushed right there, like you went for it right there when I had it.
You could almost see Alonso like kind of like
he was like he turned his back, But with Max already having engine problems, for him to push harder just to take that extra point away, that's just more friction between the two Red Bull drivers, and they have a very cool relationship. They keep it very cool amongst each other.
For what it is, yeah.
And that's honestly, that's all kudos to Checo, because imagine
it's
George
all
Russell
Checo.
in that position.
It's all Checo.
Checo.
So we'll see. That's more future drama. Other than that, Fernando Alonso finishes with a 10-second penalty and gets knocked off the podium. So we see Fernando Alonso. He finishes third place. It's his 100th podium in his career celebration. Everybody's happy, but there was like, on the broadcast, they're broadcasting it as if nothing's wrong. They're kind of like, peppering in little ideas that this may happen. But other than that, everything is, going as according to plan for a podium ceremony. But the rest of us who were calculating it, if this penalty comes to fruition, knew something was coming. There was a little bit of confusion amongst us because timing-wise, just confusing. But exactly, myself. But it came out literally as he's walking off the podium that he's getting the 10-second penalty for the grid starting position, and that George Russell will be getting it. Sad.
Yeah, that was really sad.
Sucks. Yeah. It's not like it's not going to come. He'll probably get it in Australia, but it's just awkward. It's one of those things where it's like, why don't you guys just delay the podium ceremony 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Is there no handler that can go down there and just go, hey, guys, wait up. The FIA is looking at something. In every other sport, the refs go out and they go,
yeah, but that's
timeout. But it's just because it's optics.
But that's not what Formula One does, though. Like, they don't stop from when the time the race starts to the end. They never like pause. Hold on, we got to figure something out.
I know, and
which
that's
is
dumb.
something. I know it is dumb. No, it's not dumb. Because think of these drivers who are driving and be like, oh, hold on, now we have to pause because I'm going to figure something out.
But 5 or 10 minutes more in the cool down room
for the podium, sure,
would save them not having to remove Fernando from the podium. I think that would be the much easier route than having to go, actually, let's subtract this from our entire history, this entire video broadcast that we have Fernando Alonso on the podium in Saudi Arabia 2013, and actually it's going to be George Russell. Same thing happened to Carlos Sainz in his very first podium.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much easier to just wait, zoom in on the fucking footage. Did the guy touch the back of that car or not? And decide it then.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying.
But because they have a band lined up and the TV cues all ready to go, they're doing it in that favor instead.
It's not like it's for the anthem.
It's all for the optics.
It's for third. Like, you're not hearing that.
Yeah.
Interesting anyways. But, I mean, I think more importantly, it's why is this so confusing for these teams to deal with this? Like, why have we seen it twice in a row? Like,
yeah, the penalty itself.
The penalty itself, and then even also the penalty served, right? That 5 second. I feel like that's still not something we see all that often. Mm-hmm. And after just coming off that last race, and then the team making the mistake again, obviously separate teams, but
it's weird.
I mean, what? It's weird, right?
It's like weird and awkward.
Like, it does anyone know these rules? Like, does anyone know?
I think it's somewhat just being rusty. You know, this is the first time they've really been in this situation this year. You know, maybe
Man,
It's
that
funny
plays
too
into it
because
a
like
little bit.
I can understand if he were to line up crooked, because
Yeah, I
and that's
can
what I
understand
thought
that.
Ocon did
yeah.
in the last race, was that he positioned his car crooked in order to dart towards whoever he was defending against. But it's not even that. In both cases, they just missed the line, which they're supposed to be, you know, micro professionals at finding that millimeter.
The thing that I find most weird about this, and it's sort of what you're saying, Channing, is like, if we are going off of optics, right? Like, I don't get why Formula One would want to do what happened today and like have this happen multiple times, because it makes you as an organization just look bad. And then on top of that, like, it's not good for either athlete. Like, George Russell would have liked to have celebrated on the podium.
100%.
And Fernando Alonso would have preferred to not even fucking have been on top of there if he knew he was getting fourth. So, like, to me, unless the FIA or, like, Formula One is the only person winning off of this, I genuinely have no idea why they would allow this to happen. Like, it doesn't look good for anybody.
I think it's the prestige of having like the show go on as it finished on track, and like just have the conductor play the song, and like everything is good, everything is right.
And if we need to adjust things later, we'll adjust them.
We'll do it behind the scenes.
I mean,
but because of the advancement of media, like we're watching live, people like us are talking about it immediately after. There's no veil anymore.
No.
We're literally trying to
They need to adjust
You
old
guys were
school
trying to do
ways.
math to the milliseconds.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, people know now. So, like, take the extra 5 minutes.
Exactly. Take the extra 5 minutes to count the extra 5 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no update on points on fantasy yet. We just qualifying points right now. So
Bummer. F1 needs to get on that shit too. In terms
I
of
feel like last year,
in terms of like upping their ante on what needs to be done faster.
Yeah, the
it takes
fan
it
experience.
takes almost a day to update their fantasy. So we don't have an update on our fantasy league, which unfortunately, Brew, I did offer you if you wanted to join the league. You declined.
I did.
I feel like last year you could almost get like updates down to the second, like as the race was happening, and then afterwards it would take a second to calculate the standings and all of that. But now it seems like there's no points at all until
they
like,
did
the
make
next day.
like the interface a lot better.
It's easier
yeah,
to
I don't have to
use.
log in every
Yeah.
time now.
Yeah.
Also, it's a little easier to use, but yeah, this obviously.
I made this.
But we do have qualifying updates. So Church of Checos gains 86 points. Strolling with My Homies gains 82. J Money gains 70. Let's Go Full Throttle 69. KJ gets 69 points as well. Myself, Incident, gets 61. Porpoise Power with 61. And Susie Wolf's Stan account.
Three-way
gets-
tie for 6th place.
But that's just in qualies, and that's what's going to be added to the overall
Yeah.
fantasy championship for our league, which we'll update you guys with, I guess, around the next corner. Until then, this has been Until then, this has been Into the Chicane, a Formula One podcast. I'm Channing Apodaca. That's Brandon Wood, along with Cole Dickey and Bruno Mastro da Casa. Thank you guys for tuning in. Check you out around the chicane. Peace.